welcome to the new Friends podcast, JCT official, your Instagram name, all the way from Canada. So thank you for joining us today.
No
We're not
problem.
too far in time zones, I don't think.
Well, you're in the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast, so we're a few hours apart.
A little bit. So thank you for us figuring that out. That's always the hardest part for me, is figuring out the time zones to get back on California time for me.
Oh, good.
So thanks again for coming. It's a weekend and you're in the studio, I could see. You're busy at work.
Yeah, just messing around a little bit.
So for those that don't know you, because a lot of my listeners are from California, I have a lot of Canadians now, which I'm loving. But who are you? What do you do?
Well, I mean, my artist name is JCT. I go by Joe Carlos Treseda, as I was mentioning, but people will know me by JCT. I'm a producer slash artist. I call myself a producer first before a vocalist or a singer, just because naturally it's what I do. And so I make music, I make videos, both on the production side and on the artistic side, right? And that's kind of what I do. Anybody, like I said, who knows me by JCT. I put out about, I want to say 15 years ago or so, I owned another record label. I mean, we bombed. It didn't do very well. It was more than
Gotta start somewhere.
But under that label, I put out a CD to Portugal on the islands in San Miguel. It was just like 4 songs, more the type. It was the only people that got it were like friends and family. And so there probably isn't many of those copies laying around out there anymore. And then I kind of took a little break, and then, after 10 years off, I'm like, okay, let's get back at it, and founded another record label. And here we are, I don't know, 6 years later now.
Awesome. And it's not bombing.
And it's not bombing. Yes. Well, you take your lessons from, when you get your ass kicked initially, and you use those to further your career along.
It takes a lot to continue going after closed doors and no's, and that really just means that you have a lot of heart into it. That's for sure. So as far as producing, did you start producing as well?
So I used to do a lot of shows in the community, banquet halls, churches. We raised a lot of money. So when I took time off from the music, I took time off from doing the shows. I kind of went like MIA. I went MIA from the public, but I still messed around in my studio. I always have. I was still continuing to work on my catalog. And then it was the weirdest thing. I wasn't even thinking about music. I ran into an old friend I hadn't seen in 10 years in the music industry. And he's like, Joe, what's going on? Like, you still doing the music thing? And it was like a light bulb went off. I'm like, wait a second. Now I had started business. I learned all about marketing and all this other stuff, the legal stuff, all that other stuff. And I'm like, okay, let's get back at it. And so I took what I originally had learned and failed at with my first record label at JSI Records. That's what it's called. And then I founded Theseus. And then literally we've been putting stuff out on a regular basis since then.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like I see a lot of different styles of music too. Do you branch off a lot into different styles of music?
I do. Generally try to stick with like the poppy, I'm big on reggaeton. I love reggaeton, but I also love our culture. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to marry our culture
fusion
into the reggaeton, into a lot of my poppy kind of, hippie kind of music, right? Some people like it, some people don't. Hey, whatever, it's not your cup of tea. But for me, it's important that I incorporate my culture because I'm big on our community. Like we were talking about before, we both feel like it's dying. It's not as many people our generation and younger who are getting into it. So I feel like by doing that, it almost opens the doors for these people, not only to feel comfortable about being Portuguese, but to maybe get involved in more of our associations and our culture and to continue to further that along, because I believe our Portuguese community is important, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for feeding it, because we need people feeding it. I think we grew up in a very in the box, like our parents, it's one way in and one way out. There was no really gray areas, and it was just one way to do things. So to be doing fusions and things like that, it's scary in our community because there's a lot of people that just talk to hear their own voice and
totally
not as encouraging as sometimes we would hope the community is. I do feel a shift has come and is coming, and people are being more open, especially when you have artists like, for instance, Anamora, that has switched up so hard in her style, and the fans, I think, have been struggling with that. But
the traditionalists are going to not.
I think they're struggling with that, but there's such a new wave of fans that didn't follow her traditional fado path, and are so about this new fusion. So as we grow as artists, our music is going to change as well. So
Totally.
you know, you have to like what you're playing and what you're doing. So being that you're bringing reggaeton in it, yeah, because that's like you're part of your her. You love that style of music, so why wouldn't you incorporate that? Because all of music is an incorporation of all kinds of different sounds and everything.
Exactly.
Like when we think about like Portuguese music, we have so much Arabic influence in Portuguese music, and people don't even think it. We just think we're Portuguese and that's it, nothing
Right.
else.
No, you're right. You're
It's
right.
so much influence, you know.
Totally.
So you had a few hits in this past year. The correct me if I'm wrong. You had your soccer, Portugal one.
Forza. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Força Portugal, right?
Well, it's Portugal Futsal. Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
I
Portugal
switched it
Força.
up a little bit.
Yes. And how did that do with the World Cup?
It's so far so good. Whenever I put out a song, I've got a theory that I use in this business, and that is every song is a lottery ticket, and you don't know when they're going to hit. If you get lucky, you put one out and it hits big and great. If you don't, you may put it out and nothing may happen to it for 30 years. Like especially with TikTok now, you see in TikTok a lot of music that was maybe not as big back in the days. Now all of a sudden somebody creates a
Yeah.
video with it, it goes viral, and people, the younger generation are hearing music they never even knew existed. And so that's kind of like my mentality is just expressive, do what you feel, put it out there, see how it's received. And so far the numbers have been good on Portugal
Yeah.
Futsal. Like we've done, I think 500,000 views on YouTube. I think overall through all of the platforms, we've done, I think close to 250,000 streams between Spotify and iTunes and these are on all of those because I think it's on like 200 different stores. And so we just, it was great. I did Dançar Comigo. That was really good. It's one of my favorite ones I've done as well. I really had a lot of fun shooting that music video. And we'll just keep going.
And what was your most recent, the Junto a Ti?
Yeah, Zoom to a T. Yeah, that was with an artist, Zaida. She's living in Italy, but she's got a Spanish background. And so we collabed on that. We kind of been going back and forth for like a year now on that. And then finally, I want to say about maybe 3 months ago, we were both able to get in the studio because there's a lot of back and forth that has to happen when you're doing this, especially when it's remote. Like when I have somebody in the studio with me, I can grind out a track in, 4, 5, 6, 12 hours, 20 hours, however long it takes because we're together. I can record their vocals. We don't like it. We can go back. We can change something. But when it's remote, there's a lot of back and forth. And more than that, the delay between the back and forth sometimes is what delays, the project. And so, but overall, I mean, I think once we both kind of made, okay, let's sit down and get together and do this. I think it was like 3 weeks and it was done.
That's
So
awesome.
that's a good song too. I really like that as well.
Yeah. And so do you write lyrics as well?
Everything.
Produce.
Everything, everything. And so I'm not just the only one. So I've got a few people on my team, producers. But in terms of all the lyrics, I write all the lyrics. I don't have any ghostwriters. And I do that on purpose because again, for me, if you notice the trend in all my music, I try to incorporate the Portuguese lyrics into my English. Or even
Yes.
I've done a few tracks where I've done English, Portuguese, and a little bit of Spanish. And so I need to be involved in the writing process, from A to Z, because I kind of have a vision of how I want it to go. And so I don't use any ghostwriters in terms of the lyrics, but I do work with other producers in terms of creating the music. Sometimes I'll have an idea, I'll do the beat, but then I'll give it to somebody else to see, just get another set of ears on it, right?
Yeah.
And it's always good to have a different opinion. I take constructive criticism very well. I got thick skin, nothing bothers me really. So I'll just share it. And okay, what do you think? Give me your honest opinion. Should we do this? Should we change that? And that's kind of like how the music comes
That's the
about.
fun of it, right? Like it's fun, hammering it out at night by yourself and jamming out, but like to hand it off and to see someone else raw reaction and to be able to collaborate. Sometimes our strengths are their weaknesses and vice versa. So that it's fun to work with anyone anyways. So I mean you're doing a lot by yourself. So
Yes. Yes.
to hand it off, I'm sure is a little bit of a relief.
It is, but more than that, like I said, I'm very creative, and I honestly I love criticism. I don't take criticism like it's criticism. I take it like it's just another person's point of view, and I
It's a
want to know
teaching
what their
tool.
point of view is. Right? The only feedback as an artist or even as a producer that we get is after we release something. Like
Yeah.
I could think I have tracks that I've done that I didn't think were going to do so well. Like my first single I dropped under this label is called Celebrity. I shot a music video for it. The music video is not public. It's private. I only use it for promo. We use it for press. But to this day, it's still one of my best producing in terms of streams, views, and I don't get why. It puzzles me because I'm not like the biggest fan of the song. In fact, when we did it, it was kind of like a little bit of a gimmick.
Yeah.
But everybody is going to take it a different way. What I like isn't necessarily what somebody else is going to like. And so what I've learned in doing this and going through this process is just do the music, whatever you're feeling in that moment, and then wait to get feedback from the marketplace. And the marketplace will tell you what it likes and what it doesn't like. And that's the only time we can get it is once it's gone, once it's gone out in the public and you can get feedback from people who listen and watch, right?
So you're in Toronto, correct?
Yeah, just outside of Toronto.
Yeah. How is the music scene over there? How is the community like receiving you over there?
Great. I've been
Shows?
approached to do, quite a few shows here. I've turned down a lot of opportunities. I've got certain standards and certain things I look for when I do shows. For me, it's not so, I've done so many shows throughout my career. So for me, it's not so much about being on stage, even though I love to do that part of it. And we have a lot of artists here. I feel like there's more coming, and that's great because we're a small community. And the more we can have, again, going back to what we were talking about, the better it is for the culture, right?
Yeah.
And so I talked with quite a few artists here, and not just in Canada, in the USA. I've got some friends down there as well who are artists as well, some that you know of. And we talked about doing collaborations, whether we get together and do that. But right now, my focus mainly is working with the Latin artists and Latin producers I'm working with out of the Caribbean, Argentina. I'm working with another artist right now out of the Dominican Republic. I've got a couple of artists I'm working with out of Europe, and so that's where the focus is right now. But the goal eventually is, I want to do. We've got plenty of artists here that I'd love to do some stuff with as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what are we looking forward to next? Is there an album coming out? Is there any do you typically just release tracks?
When I made the decision to found the second record label, the first thing I told myself was I wasn't going to drop an album just for the sake of dropping an album, right? Like at the end of the day, you do have to look at the numbers. It still is a business. There's still a lot of money involved when you're producing a record, promoting a record, and all that stuff. And so for me, I'm like, my mentality, other people can have theirs, and that's great. That's their opinion. But my opinion on this is my following isn't large enough yet to drop an album. I've got an album ready, but it's not large enough yet. And so for me, it makes no sense to drop an album, for 5 people or 10 people or 50,000 people, whatever, follow me on Instagram, to listen to. It's just not large enough. And so my mentality is focus on doing good quality singles. I think I've dropped already 20 or 21 singles, and just try to do as many videos to go. Plenty of singles, right?
Yeah.
And so continue to just do the singles. Sometimes I'll get in the studio, I'll record a track, and then I'm going to finish this track and I'm going to drop it as a single. And then I like it. I'm like, no, I'm going to drop this into the album, and I'll put it in another folder, and it just kind of sits there, on my storage drive, and until that moment comes. When that moment comes, I'll know when the time is, and we'll drop the hammer.
That's exciting.
Right.
So you sing and you kind of rap, right?
I wouldn't really call myself a rapper. I'm more an artist.
Yeah, for sure. You're like the all-around artist. And forgive me because I'm just getting to know people outside of California. But when I came across your page, I was like, who is this? And I was like, he has so much music, like so many different musics from so many different genres. And I was like, is this one artist?
I get that.
You're all over, like, as far as like your marketing goes, you're doing a great job because you're all over.
Thank you.
So congratulations on that. I think you definitely had a good year, right?
Yeah, the last few years have been good. And we went through COVID, right? And so on face value, COVID was bad. It was bad for everybody. For me, I got to lock myself in the studio and just go nuts, right? And so although, outside we weren't able to do much, inside I got a lot done in terms of my creativity, right? Music is expressive. It's expressive. It's all about what you're feeling in that moment, where you're getting your inspiration from, where your ideas are coming from. And they come in the most weirdest, random places. It always happens to me. Like I'll go on vacation somewhere and I'll be like, okay.
Are you a voice noter? Will you just like take out the voice note, start humming melodies?
Oh my God, I've got like 100 voice notes on my phone.
Yeah.
Right? Because an idea will come and I don't want to lose it. So I'll just, quickly, record it in the phone there. And then when I have time, I get in the studio and I kind of play with it and try to, formulate what that idea was in that moment. Right? Because most of the time for me, the ideas do not come to me when I'm sitting here.
Do
They
you
come
play
when I'm stuck.
instruments as well?
I do. I play naturally. I'm an accordion player. That's what I first started
Okay.
with way back in the day. And
Not
it's funny
easy.
because it is because at the time I was just an accordion player, a Portuguese accordion player. Little did I know at that time that it was going to lead me up, all the way here.
Yeah.
But when I remember going to school, my teacher John, like 30 years ago, he used to always tell me, he used to say, if you get really good at this will open doors for everything, because
What?
the accordion is one of the hardest instruments to learn. There's like three or four different things happening simultaneously when you're playing it.
It's
Like you're
like
playing,
doing this,
right, right. Like you got
tapping your head, rubbing your stomach at the same time. That's what I always think of when I see people do the accordion. I'm like, how do you do that all at once?
right. And so, I did that for 3 years. I got out of it, and then I kind of started producing music in the studio. But naturally, I always go back to that. Like it's just,
Yeah.
that's home. That's where I feel home, right? It's like riding a bike. I haven't touched it in 5 years, but if I grabbed it, it would still all be right there, right? But at the time, I thought it was ridiculous. I was young. My friends, I was
Yeah.
probably the only one that was playing
It's like
accordion.
cool again. Concertina's cool again.
Totally. Now at this
Yeah.
age, I got a lot of people who love it. They're like, they look at me like I'm, like this guy plays accordion. There aren't many accordion players out there. And so it's a very unique sound.
Yeah.
And our community is very receptive to it. I mean, a lot of us have grown
I
up on it.
personally love the sound of an accordion. I know it's not for everybody, but it's
Right.
such a our culture. Like it's just our culture in
Totally.
a nutshell.
Totally.
We had a folklore festival over here, and we invited a group from Canada come, and they had so many young concertina players, and I was like, wow, this is so incredible to see so many like young girls and everything, and they have taken upon themselves to teach more kids, and their youngest kid is 3 years old learning the accordion.
Amazing.
So it's nice to know that that's happening, and those are just the little steps that it's going to take for to continue all of these cultures and traditions. Because accordion, is it like playing a keyboard, having ouvido, and like keeping the beat all in one, basically, right?
Totally. You can make if you have there's accordions out there that can legit do a full band on their own. Like, and they cost a lot of money. I have an accordion, cost me like $8,000 way back in the day. Came from Germany, and it's not there. It's not quite there to do a band, but it's pretty close. I can pretty much do everything on that
That's
thing all by
insane.
myself, right? But from the accordion, I learned how to play the keys. So when I'm in
Yeah.
the studio, naturally, like, the keys came from the accordion part of it. You know what I'm saying? And going back to what you were saying, with these little kids that came with this folklore group, that's kind of how I got started. Because I
Yeah.
was a young kid. I was, I think, 8 years old, and my grandfather came from Portugal and he used to do these festivals every year. And when he would bring the videos to show my parents and my family, I would always see these little kids with the accordion. I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I want one of those. And then lo and behold, my dad went out with my grandfather. They picked an accordion. My dad got me one. I got started with it. And they saw right away that I kind of had like a thing for it, a shape
Natural
for it,
good.
whatever. And I
Yeah.
was natural, right? Clearly it was in the bloodlines. And so they put me in
It
school,
was
and then it
not in
just
the
kind of,
bloodlines, you said.
sorry?
It was not in the bloodline?
It was.
Okay.
It was like the playing of it, right? And my mom sings. So when my grandfather used to do these festivals, my mom would sing every year in the festivals.
Oh,
My dad sings
dang.
too, but he's not a big singer. And so it just came naturally, right? And the accordion is amazing. I love it. It's fantastic. And
Yeah.
I'm using it actually in a lot of the stuff I'm doing now.
Oh, that's awesome. So, if you could compare like your style to any of these celebrities, is there anything comparable right now?
I would have to it would have to be like a combination of, like, I don't know, Justin Timberlake and Daddy Yankee and, like,
Yeah, that's
who else you got? Like,
yeah.
all rolled into one.
I used like there was a time, I don't know, God, like where reggaeton was huge in the US. So big, well, Daddy Yankee and all of that stuff, and oh, I loved it. But I haven't really heard like a lot of reggaeton since.
I feel like it goes through like a different periods of time, especially in mainstream, where they push it, at certain times more, and then other times less. But in Latin America, I mean, it's still massive. I mean, like if we look at our culture, Portugal, over like 10 million people just in Portugal alone. Latin America is like 500 million of them around the world, right? It's still a massive, market for them. And so I love the music. I love the sound. I love the way they dance, the way they move to it. And the music always tells a story too, right? Music, like I said, it's expressive. And so usually it's telling a story, and that's what this is. It's storytelling in a weird way.
Do you feel connected to your lyrics in that way, or do you feel like you just pump out lyrics and you're more connected with the actual production of the music?
Good question. Maybe more so than music, but when I'm writing lyrics, sometimes like okay, there's writing lyrics like the way you're feeling in that moment, like you broke up with somebody, you're having heartbreak, and
Those are
you
the
write
sellers.
right, and then there's writing music to write music, right? And so for
Mhm.
me, there's a little bit of both. There's what I'm feeling in the moment, but then there's also like I have an idea of what I want to do in my head, kind of like Portugal Fusa. That was an idea I had in my head, and so it started with the accordion. And then, the idea was soccer, right? And the way that I wanted to do the soccer is when I wrote the lyrics, I wanted to incorporate playing soccer. So the way that I wrote the lyrics was about playing soccer. And then when we shot the video, I'm like, okay, it's got to be shot at a soccer field. Like I want to incorporate that whole theme, that whole vibe. And so it wasn't because I was playing soccer in that moment. It wasn't because of that, that was what I was feeling in that moment, but that was the idea. And then it kind of just evolved from there, right?
Yeah. I mean, you can just see your energy in it. You're so in it. Like this is your time right now. I could see like the passion just flowing out of you when you
Thank
talk
you.
about it. So yeah, it's a pretty I'm excited to watch the growth. I mean, you've already grown so much of your following, but I'm excited to watch the growth. If somebody is wanting to get into the music industry and they're afraid of, say they have a song that they're sitting on or something, like what would you say would be the easiest way to put something out to start? Would they contact you? Would they?
If they want to work with me, yeah, sure, reach out to me. I mean, you can go to my
Yeah.
website and you can contact me from there, jctofficial.com, where you can find me on the socials, JCTofficial7, that's my handle, if they want to work with me. But if they want to work alone, the music industry and the music business has changed. It's evolved over the last, especially the last 15 years, like even 20 years. Before it used to be you needed a record label, right? Because
Yeah.
everything was done on CDs. Somebody had to put up the cash to press those CDs. You needed a distribution deal to, get those CDs into stores, but it's changed. Like I have my MacBook, so like I'm in my studio, but I produce music on my MacBook. I don't even need this stuff, right? And so anybody can do that. Like as long as you're willing to learn and learn the programs, you can learn your own digital audio workstation, which is like the softwares that you use to create the music, and you can record your own vocals. I mean, again, it takes some time. You have to learn it, but after that, there's plenty of digital distributors now that you can use as an independent to put your own music out. You don't need to be signed to a record label. You can do it independently. In fact, I think one of the biggest artists out there now, Russ, is completely independent. You have another one, Tory Lanez, he's independent. And so those doors have opened now. Like if you know what you're
Yeah.
doing and you take the time to learn the business, you can do your own music. You can put it out. You can create your own following, right? It's a lot easier to than it used to be.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, I have been in music my whole life as well. My family's all music and everything. And I took a 10-year break too. And I feel like everyone I talk to takes that break. Like there's always that break that you don't know why you're taking it, but when you come back in it, you're like, I really missed this. This is part of me. So I feel
That's
like you're like in that, right? Like this is me, man.
Yeah. I just right now, okay, so I don't, we as all of us as artists, we look for validation. When we put our stuff out, we want to be validated, all that good stuff. But I'm a big believer that if you don't have the love for it naturally, you'll quit when the validation doesn't come. Right. And so for me, although I love the validation, great, thank you. I'm, very grateful for all that stuff. I do it because, after taking 10 years off, I kind of found myself again. It's the only thing I know how to do that's going to outlast me. I'm going to die. My music will stay behind. And it's the only thing that I do for free. There's nothing else in my life I will do for free. Music, I'll do it all day long. Right. And so you kind of have to be a little crazy that way,
I know.
because when it gets tough, because it does, like if you don't get validation or if you're not getting the support you feel you deserve or whatever the case might be, you'll quit. And that's why most people do when it comes to music. They do one song and didn't make it big and they quit. And that's not how it works. But if that's your goal, uh, you are destined to quit anyway.
Yeah.
Right? Because you don't have that drive, you don't have that passion, right? And so for me, I always just go back to when I was a little kid. I kind of feel like, in a weird way, I'm a little kid again. I'm a little kid in the candy store. When I was a little kid, I'd get, pails and
You got adult
yell at,
money now. You can buy all the gadgets you want.
right? And I used to make my own little songs. We'd have a tape recorder and I produce my own songs. I put a tape recorder recording, and I grab pails and chinelas and spoons, and I'd make my own little beats, and and I'm kind of doing the same thing now. It's just I'm not using a tape recorder and chinelas and
Yeah.
pails, right? And so
You might need to bring those sounds back. The
maybe
authentic Chinela,
you
That's
just gave me an
awesome.
idea.
I that's the one thing I wish that I could do is play an instrument or be able to create my own music in that sense. So it's such a gift to be able to to give yourself because you can do things all on your own. You don't have to call anybody else to really help you form a song. So in that sense, that's like freeing in a way.
Totally,
And
it's very
and I think
liberating.
that's why like we become more of a track by track industry where people are just putting up singles because when I think of albums like Beyonce's album, not every song is a hit, right? So it's almost like you're wasting these songs in an album when you can put them out individually and they could probably have more fame individually. And I think that's what a lot of people were realizing that they were just having their one hit per album. Some people, it's
But
some,
a lot of that is by design as well, right? Like,
yeah,
uh, if you've been in the studio, you made 15 songs, and 13 of them are hits. You're not going to put them all on one CD on one album and put them out, right? You're gonna space it out. And most of these artists that are signed to labels, they're signed for multiple albums. They're not signed for just one. And so you have to plan ahead and say, okay, I recorded 14 songs this year or 100 songs or whatever, and out of the 100, we've got 10 that we think are like legit hits. Okay, you're not going to put them all out on that one album. You'll put two or three, and then you'll put what I call fluff or fillers, right? You put those filler songs in there because you still got to put out an album. I think the last album I can remember that was legit, almost every song. Drake has a lot of albums where his music, it's all good. It's just different. But Michael Jackson, he was good at that. He could
yeah,
have one album and have like, five,
banger
six,
after
7 good
banger.
songs on one CD. Today, like I'd say probably Drake. He's fantastic at that. Like I go through his album and every single song is good. They're different, but they're good. Like they're all bangers, right? And so, but again, Drake is kind of doing his own thing. He's got his massive following. He can kind of control, more of his own music. I know he has his own producers and stuff, and good for him. That's the goal for all of us if you can get kind of to that point, right? But when you're
Yeah.
when you're not and you're signed to a label usually kind of controls the direction of how that album is going to go.
And that's why a lot of artists don't want to go with labels, but it's also good for people that have zero direction. Like you're like, look, I just sing or whatever it may be, and I don't know what to do or where to go, help me kind of thing. And that's when it's nice to have the backing of people that know what they're doing. And that's why there's a place for everyone's path, right? Like everyone has a different path when it comes to all their of this music. How do you feel when you do, like, say you'll do Spanish in a song or Portuguese in a song? Do you feel like it's hard to go in between both cultures or both languages? Do people ever
Yes and
say,
no.
man, you're stepping away from Portuguese? What the heck?
Yes and no. Okay. Yes, because it's different and it's not really something common. Like we don't really do this. So in that sense, yes. For me, no. And I'm trying to say that humbly because it comes naturally for me. And so I don't. And another thing that I have, like I said before, is I have really thick skin. I'm not really too concerned with how people are going to judge it. In fact, I have a saying that I live by it, and that is, you don't have any haters. You're doing whatever it is you're doing wrong,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if you're doing it the right way, you're just automatically going to attract people who are going to hate what you're doing. They don't even know you, and they're going to hate you. It's just the reality of, the world that we're living in right now. And so for me, I don't ever worry about how it's going to be received or how it's going to be judged, because I think when you do that, you kind of hinder your ability to just lose yourself in that moment of whatever it is you're doing, whether it's music or I always use painters because I have a couple friends that are painters as well. They do art and whatnot, and it's kind of like the same thing. You may have a crazy idea that to everybody else is going to sound so crazy and so far fetched, but for you, it just sounds normal, right? And if you get caught up with all the extracurricular activity and all the outside stuff, it hinders your ability to just be creative and be expressive. And so for me, I don't really like it. Again, saying it humbly, it just comes so naturally for me, and I do it on purpose. It's very deliberate, right? So I want to mash up the Portuguese with the Spanish,
Yeah.
right? Because it's what I like. I like both. I've
Yeah.
done songs that are completely all in Portuguese, I've done some songs that are all in English. I haven't done any that are completely in Spanish yet, but Spanish is not my language. It's just a language that I love, something that I enjoy. I spend a lot of time down there. And so I gravitate to that. And so I just try to incorporate that into what I'm doing. But the bulk of the stuff I do is Portuguese. And I like marrying it with different things because it gives it its own unique sound, and maybe in a weird way, it helps separate me from all the other artists that are out there. I don't want to be like anybody else. I want to kind of do my own thing, create my own lane.
Yeah, you definitely are creating your own lane. How are you keeping up with like the TikTok world? Because I feel like now music is just so engulfed with TikTok in general. Instagram too. I love putting a good song on my posts. Like the other day I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make a Spotify playlist of every song I put on my Instagram post because I love all the music I chose. But how that has to influence like your views, your following and everything, because now everyone puts a song to something. Everyone's doing a dance on TikTok to something. How has that been it's like the new way of music is kind of the TikTok and Instagram world.
It is. You're right. I'm not active. Like you see my Instagram. I don't post on a regular basis, and TikTok is even less. Like I guess for me, if I was looking for validation, I would post all day long, and I should be, because the reality is, as an artist, the only way you can put your stuff in front of people is you need to be posting on a regular basis, right? And so I don't care much for that. It's not why I do it. Otherwise, I would be posting all day, all night. You know what I mean? Or I'd hire somebody.
You do so well. Maybe that is why you do so well, because you don't put all your energy into it.
Yeah, exactly. But I should be. That's the reality. You're right. TikTok is the thing right now. But even bigger than Instagram, because music can blow up.
There's so many things to keep up with. It's so hard to keep up with all the outlets. You almost need help for all of it,
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like if somebody does something crazy with your song in it, like you literally could become viral, and then with your music, and then you got all these millions of kids doing all these crazy dances to your music. So we have to like play with that generation a little bit.
Totally. Well, why don't you help me out with that, Sylvia? Come up with an idea.
I don't do all the dancing on TikTok. Yeah, but it's been a challenge even for me to be posting, because you have that like, am I annoying or what? Like I'm constantly posting, and I get tired of myself sometimes. I'm like, okay, I need to take a break. This is a lot. But it does come with the territory, because I realize if I'm not being active, and especially on the podcast page, it loses so much of its viewership. But I feel like I have a different situation because I'm a female. It's a lot harder, I feel like, for females to rise than it is for the males, and that's just how it is. I think a lot of the people interacting are women, and it's hard for women to cheer on women, and that's just the kind of. But so I feel like it's a lot harder of a climb for the girls. Like I had one situation that I let beat me up one time and never again. We're done with that. But somebody had commented on like, you think you're some Portuguese Kardashian, and made this whole account to put me down. And I was just like, what an idiot. And I was putting on the tough exterior, but for like 4 days, it really affected me, because it was the first time. It was the first time I had ever had anyone talk about my appearance or like the content that I'm putting out. And I'm like, I'm not making any money off of this, you guys. This is for the whole community.
Right. But it
really took a toll on me for a minute, but I was like, you know what? They're not doing a podcast. They're not doing this. They're not doing any of this. So the fact that you went out of your way to make an account with no profile picture to tell me off tells me that I'm doing something that is really annoying you, and maybe that's good for me.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I've had that happen as well. And I always go back to a saying my parents used to tell me when I was a kid before I'd go do a show. My dad would always say, right? He used to always say, don't go up there and embarrass yourself, because they're going to throw tomatoes at you. Now, they weren't going to throw tomatoes, but back in the day, that's what it was.
Yeah.
But today, they're still throwing tomatoes. It's just not real tomatoes. It's tomatoes in the form of verbal insults and jabs, and people see your stuff and they don't like it, and they pretend they don't see your stuff. And it's all the same thing. It's what I liken it to is when that stuff starts to happen, you are on the right path. When people start to try to dim your light, and they start to hate on you for no reason other than you are just doing something you love, that's what you need to be doing, right?
Yeah.
Because it means your light is irritating something in them, right? And you need to, but it's not a them problem, it's a you problem. Like when I say that, I think of myself, it's a me problem that I have to work on developing my ability to just ignore that noise, because it's going to come. Like
It-
it's going to come. If I have a hit that blows up, that's just going to come, because
yeah.
people are haters, and that's what people do. And I kind of almost feel sorry for them when I see that, to be honest,
Yeah,
because
I think
I
you're
feel like
no
something in
fun.
me is irritating their demons, that it feels like maybe they want to do something, and for whatever reason they haven't gone and taken the initiative to go and do it. And
Yeah.
so I look at it a little bit more compassionate when that stuff happens. I know somebody 20 years who saw one of my videos and asked me if I filmed the video in a stairwell. Like all I could do was laugh. It really bothered him so much, and all I could do was laugh. I'm like, wow, like I'm kind of like flattered in a way, because you don't go out of your way to comment anything positive, anything good, anything nice, but you would go out of your way to leave a remark like that. To me, it tells me
Yeah,
that you've noticed.
imagine if we got as many good comments as we got bad comments.
You won't. The reality is, the people only support you when it's popular to support you. I always
Yes,
use Cristiano.
yes.
I always use Cristiano as an example. When he first broke out, he had a lot of haters. He still does, but he had a tremendous amount of
Only
haters.
because our dads hated his haircut.
Right, but for whatever reason, he had
He
a
was
lot of haters,
cocky, he was
even from
arrogant, that whole talk in the beginning. Yeah.
right, right. And I remember I used to go watch soccer games with people, and they weren't his biggest fan. And our own kind, his own kind, would hate on him. But it wasn't until he started to get noticed from outside his own kind that he started to be accepted by his own kind. And it was the weirdest thing. And so you look at him now, everybody in the world loves him.
Yeah,
I
he's
don't
like,
want to say everybody, because he still has his haters, but you know what I'm saying? Like, he has a lot of support. He has a lot of people in his corner. But imagine if he didn't have the thick skin to continue to pursue what he was doing and to continue to push himself the way he has done. He wouldn't be able to reap the fruits of his labor, of all the work that he's done over the last 15, 20 years, right? And that's my thing. If you're not willing to deal with you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen, because
totally.
it's going to come. Like
Yeah.
with your
That's
podcast,
what I had to tell myself. Like, if you can't handle this, Sylvia, you need to stop now.
right?
Because this is only the beginning and you need to stop now. So I kind of had to like be a little bit tough on myself to just get through it. But I'll never let myself believe it again, because I think I believed it for a second. I was like, is this what people think about me? This is totally not what I'm trying to do at all. And it was just hating to hate, and at the same time, it's like you're still secretly looking at all my stuff. So
Honestly, if we take anything from our conversation today, take this: be ready. They're going to throw the tomatoes.
yeah,
And
yeah.
if
And
you're
it's funny that you said your dad said, "Don't go out there and embarrass you." My mom, the first time I ever went on stage to sing, my cousin's like, "Okay, Sylvia, you ready?" I'm like, maybe 13 or something. "Okay, Sylvia, you ready? You're gonna do a song with us?" I'm like, "Okay." And then my mom's like, "Sylvia, don't go and embarrass yourself." And I remember thinking, "Oh yeah, oh yeah."
I'm going to go embarrass everybody on
From
purpose.
that moment, I've been built on fire. Like, if anybody tells me I'm this or that, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna prove it wrong. And that must be like the negative Portuguese in us, because our parents were like supportive right off the bat. They're like, please don't embarrass us.
But that's just it, right? It's because their fears are fears of being judged, and we have a lot of that in our community, right? I have it in my family, right? Well, we all do, and that's where the work is. Honestly, I think what you're doing with the podcast is fantastic. Keep it up. Keep trying to interview more people in the community. Continue to, and like I said, be ready. They're going to throw tomatoes. It's the reality of it all.
We got to be ready to catch them.
No, no, no. You'll get good at it when you don't even see them. You ignore them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for
Like,
sure.
people are going to throw the tomatoes. You won't even care. You're going to feel compassion for them when they throw the
So you
tomatoes.
don't react at all to it.
I do. Sometimes I make like jokes out of it. Like, I had one guy on my YouTube video. He's like, "What is on the Portugal Futsal one?" So we originally had uploaded one version of it. And some guy left me a comment like, "What is this shit? It's the worst thing I ever seen." I'm like, "Hey, man, I don't know. I got drunk one night and I fell asleep
Yeah.
and I woke up and here we are on YouTube." Like, I kind of make a joke out of it, right? And so that's kind of like the mentality you need to have. And I already know every time I put something out, I'm almost kind of expecting for people to throw shade or hate. And if they don't, great. If they do, great. But for me, like I said, it's a constant work in progress on myself. And I only say that because it's the same for you. When you're doing something of substance, you're gonna attract hate. It's just a reality.
Yeah. That's awesome. Do you have any shows or anything coming up, and what's something that we can look forward to with you?
I've been working on some stuff, whether we're able to, finalize some details and, come to terms on the negotiations. We'll see what happens. But again, it's not a priority. Right now, the priority is the music that I'm doing right now and working on some videos that hopefully if we can get that stuff finalized, I can go and shoot some videos as well. We have some stuff in the pipeline that we've already shot, we've already done. And so I don't look too far ahead, and things kind of just happen naturally. I just let things take their course. And, like kind of like this interview with me and you, things will come. If you're doing the work, the opportunities will come. And in that moment is when you decide, okay, I'm feeling it or I'm not feeling it. Like this year I got approached for 3 different shows and I turned all 3 of them down. I didn't feel, I wasn't comfortable with the terms. I wasn't comfortable with the, certain things around it. And so I turned it down. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't change anything in terms of my music, whether I'm going to put out music or not. I'm still going to put it out. And those opportunities will continue to keep coming.
I'm looking forward to it. Well, JCT is going to be in the Palma magazine for the November issue, so you guys can kind of learn a little bit more about his background and how he started music and full-on bio and photos, and there'll be all kinds of links to all of your new releases and websites and everything like that. But I appreciate you taking the time and allowing me to learn about you. Now I can say that we're truly friends and we could really like each other's things for real.
Right.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to your growth, and I'm looking forward to seeing, more artists under your record label. And always I'm going to be rooting for you and your success and everything that
Thank you.
you have going on over there. I'm
Thank
happy
you,
that
Sophia. Yes, likewise. Same goes for you. I'll do what I can to, continue to further the culture and, what we're doing and what you're doing. Like I said, keep it up. And if you're ever in the Toronto area, feel free to reach out. If I'm ever out in Cali, I'll reach out. There's always
for
time.
sure. Yes, we'll have to figure something out, with the events and all that stuff. I'm sure we will cross paths one way or another. But where can people find you?
Like I said, they can go to my website, jctofficial.com, or they can just find me on socials. All the socials are the same. It's JCT Official 7, the number 7. So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Like I said, I'm not active, but you'll find me there.
You're active. You say you're not. Yeah.
I'm active with my stories. I'm not active with my posts.
Yeah. But stories are what people are watching anyways all day. They're just like scrolling through the stories. So
it's more so because you can track the analytics and the metrics better in the stories than you can, I think, with the posts. And so that's why I use the stories more than I do the posts. But I should be doing posts more often, regardless of Instagram or TikTok or even Twitter, because Twitter, you can amass a huge following on Twitter as well. I just don't do it on a regular basis, and I should be.
I know. You have to add somebody under your belt to just do it for you.
Maybe we'll get there. Right now, the focus is just to continue to keep putting out music. And then when I'll wake up one day and be like, oh, okay, you know what? Let's focus more on the socials, and then we'll do it then. But until then, I'm just enjoying myself making music again.
I think you know what you're doing. I don't think
Right.
anyone has to tell you how to do what you're doing. You've been doing it for a long time, and you've had a lot of success. So I appreciate your time. I look forward to talking to you again, and hopefully we can share some more news coming in the future for you. And welcome to Palma Pulse, all the radio stations. If you guys want to listen to some of his music, he'll be on Palma Pulse as well. And follow him if you guys get a chance.
Awesome. Thank you, Sylvia.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.